Hey everyone, I'm sure some of you are asking me already from college or from Wisconsin, where is Jeremiah Swisher? I know it's very heart-aching, and I've told a lot of people this, but currently I'm doing an internship in Washington, D.C., working for the NCIL or NCIL, which is the National Council on Independent Living. Currently, we are fighting for disability policy and fighting for disability rights. One of the things that we recently did is we went to the Medicaid rally for Why My Medicaid Matters. My Medicaid matters. My Medicaid matters. And that's what most of us basically chanted. And then we had several politicians come up there and speak. And then it was so cool having this rally on Capitol Hill on September 21st, 2011, because on the balcony of the Capitol, I couldn't see as well, but a lot of them were just watching us. And then you got people from around that were watching us, TV news and everything. And I even got this free shirt. Real people, real voices, real reform, my Medicaid matters. And one of the things that we were advocating for on a disability rights area is that Medicaid shouldn't be cut. Let's face it, I mean, a lot of politicians want to cut Medicaid because you've got a shortfall when it comes to budgets, deficits. However, at the same time, when you do cut programs to try to pay off the bills, it really hurts a lot of people. And the middle class and the lower class, from what a lot of us were arguing, whether my organization or a lot of different organizations, we were arguing that we don't have anything more to give because, economic times are really hard. And that there's other alternatives for Medicaid, and it shouldn't be cut because so many people rely on Medicaid. And if that's your primary insurance, it's one of those things where you can't go without health care these days, and health care is a very vital thing. And personally, for myself, I envision two things without being affiliated to anything. It's just my personal opinion solely. I think in no particular order, we could either have option one, in where we have universal health care, in where for private insurances they can compete against the public healthcare sector, because currently we have health reform, which helps give everyone insurances, but then you have waivers, so technically not everyone has to have insurance, and it makes it a huge burden on companies, especially when they have to provide you insurance sometimes. So if you have universal health care, then the government, if you don't have private health care insurance, then the government has to provide for it. And I know it's like, oh my God, socialism, and it's not socialist at all, because what happens is that if you don't have health care, you can get it from the government. And instead of having like 20 different health care systems, what you do is maybe you have like governmental health care, which is one major health care system, and then you got maybe a few other private health care insurance companies. And then it's actually a lot lower in cost because there's still competition, but if everyone puts their money into the same pots, it reduces your variable and your fixed costs. So it's actually a lower cost than everyone, personally. And at least then people won't be able to go without health care. And then it's like, well, why should this person get health care without working for it, Or, however, if this person doesn't have health care, regardless of what's right or what's wrong, they're going to put an overburden on the hospitals, and if they don't have insurance and they can't afford it, it's going to run the hospitals a lot of money. And then who's paying for their coverage? We are, which when I've done research, it actually costs a lot more. I've also heard arguments with healthcare that healthcare may not be as good of quality with public health insurance. And that is why you still have private healthcare companies. So you do have that option. It's like public and private schools. If you don't want to put your kid in public school, you can put them in a private school. And it's one of those things where, at least with public health care, everyone gets covered, because currently with healthcare reform, you still have private healthcare insurance companies, but a lot of it is now being regulated. And I don't necessarily believe that the government should have to regulate the insurance companies. I think people should have a libertarian choice of what they want to do and what they don't want to do. But basically, if they don't comply and there is universal health care insurance, then they're going to find out the hard way that they're out of business. So in reality, they will comply. I just don't believe that there should be regulations, because I think if you want to correct a problem, what you do is you fix the problem instead of just putting limitations on the problem. But that's just my opinion solely. I really don't want to debate this politically. Otherwise, we have option two, which I like this option a bit better, even though it just solves the problem for people with disabilities. Because with Medicaid, you have a lot of lower class people that also use Medicaid, as well as other people, like because you might have other people besides having disabilities using Medicaid, which you do have other people. But if you want to solve for the Medicaid problem for people with disabilities, what you can do with healthcare reform is find ways for businesses to hire people with disabilities, because currently a lot of them have the grudge that, hey, we are very limited in what we can do. So if you see someone in a wheelchair, it's like, oh, how can they do this or how can they do that? Well, technically, you can still have somebody in a wheelchair like do something like cashiering. It's just you got to make that area more accessible. And there are governmental programs out there that if you do hire people with disabilities, that there are governmental programs where they can help, fund to make your company more accessible. There are programs fighting for accessibility. So there's always, even if there's not a direct program, there's always, if there's a will, there's a way. And there's so many jobs that someone in a wheelchair can do, especially. I mean, even if someone can't walk, I mean, there are so many different positions. Like you can have them cashier, you can have them, talk on the phone and provide customer service, like being a customer consultant. There's so many different ways. And someone like myself with autism, I can strive and talk about people with disabilities, but also I'm pretty good at customer service, and I leave smiles on customers' faces. And I can, even if I have a disability, and even if I have high anxiety problems, I can still clean up a movie theater auditorium, and I can still do a lot of things that other people can do. The only thing is that I just have differences like everyone else. I mean, you'll have like a regular kid that might be good at something, but might not be good in this other field. Like one of the things that I'm not the best at is multitasking. Like I'm not really the best at doing a fast-paced work environment, but that doesn't mean that I still can't do the job. It's just that you want to put me to somewhere where I'm good at. And I think what we have to do is, instead of putting the grudge on people with disabilities and saying, hey, they're not good at this, or hey, they're not good at that, or hey, they're disabled, you've got to see that a lot of people with disabilities are very able-bodied. It's just that we're good at some areas, and other areas we're not as good at, And I think a lot of companies need to realize that, need to outreach, because one of the most important things in a company is that you want to have diversity, because with having diversity, you have people that are good at very different things, and that's good, because you want to put people to work at what they're really good at, because then your company is going to be as productive as it possibly can, because you have a lot of companies where they'll put workers where, hey, we'll put you over here, hey, we'll put you over there, hey, we'll put you over here, without evaluating what the person is truly very good at. And I think it's one of those important things that if you put people where they can maximize their potential, it can maximize the potential of the company. And I think that people need to realize that we want to work, we want to be out in the community, we want to help people out, but we need to be given that chance. And as long as I live, I plan to fight that there needs to be more equality among the disability community, at least when it comes to the workforce. Because if you want to solve the problem for Medicaid, you must solve the problem directly instead of trying to avoid the problem and providing cuts. Because cuts aren't helping fix the problem. All it does is it helps pay for a budget, and then eventually you think that it's going to pay for the budget. But a lot of people said at the Medicaid rally, it doesn't. Because let's say if you have a leg that's very infected and Medicaid doesn't cover it. You wait and wait and wait, and then finally Medicaid covers it because your leg gets that bad and you're in the hospital. In reality, if you get your leg, having to get your leg amputated, that is going to cost a lot more money for Medicaid than fixing the problem directly. So in reality, cutting does not solve the problems. I'm sorry, Republicans, I disagree with that. But at the same time, what you got to do is you got to fix the problem. So in this video, I provided several solutions to fix the problem. I know it's easier said than done, but if everyone works together, and this isn't a one-man job to fixing the problem for the high disability unemployment rates, then at least more people with disabilities will be employed and have jobs. So then the government will actually be saving a lot of money and you have more taxpayers. That's how I look at it. I don't know about you, but at least if you don't agree with me, I hope that I had some very interesting points, because I think everyone's entitled to their opinions, but I think what we need is we need more diversity into the workforce, because I've been to some companies and where it's like you're able to see everyone that's, like Caucasian, or like everyone that has something in common. I remember once I walked to a workplace, like once I was walking just to get a sub sandwich once, and all I saw was all guys there. It's like, you need diversity. It's good to have people that are different, because then you have more use of a variety of skills that are offered from different various backgrounds. And I advocate for it. I definitely advocate for melting pot, because even if somebody has a different personality or looks differently, doesn't mean that I shouldn't be friends with them, because I should, because it's good being friends with people from different backgrounds. As I've stressed before, I understand that people might be uncomfortable about how people act or the way, people do things, but you can't always judge a book by its cover. You can't say, oh, because I have autism, that means that I'm nonverbal and I can't talk. You can't always do that. And I think that it's important that you meet everyone and you accept everyone for who they are, even if your opinions are a bit different, because it's important that everyone works together. And you're always going to have different opinions when it comes to politics or religion or other different areas, beliefs, and issues. But it's important that we all work together and accept everyone for who they are, because we're all working for a common goal, and that is getting a job and helping out people. It's just we have different ways of doing it. And it's good to have different opinions provided, because then at least you're not, focused on one idea or another. It's good to have different ideas, because by having different ideas, that's going to be how you're going to get the plan done, or to become successful. And that is my overall opinion on that. Thank you, and I hope that you have yourself a great, amazing day. Bye for now.